How well do you know your neighbors? Would you be shocked if they did something horrible? This small community in California never suspected that when one of their own went missing, the culprit would be someone so close to them. This culprit was a trusted member of the community. She taught Sunday school at a local church, she was a mom, and her grandfather was a pastor. No one could have ever imagined that behind that warm and kind exterior hid a cold-hearted monster, capable of doing horrific things to someone so vulnerable and innocent. Let's dive in. Sandra Renee Cantu was born on March 8, 2001, to Maria Chavez and Daniel Cantu. She lived in a trailer park with her mom, grandparents, and 3 older siblings in Tracy, California. Sandra was a super happy and bubbly girl. She loved doing cartwheels, playing with friends, and she was always helping out around the neighborhood. She was also very friendly and talkative and would strike up a conversation with basically anyone. But things took a dark turn on March 27, 2009. Sandra had just come home from school, and being the super energetic girl she was, she asked her mom if she could go out and play. Her mom said yes, it was normal for young people at the park to hang out and play at each other's houses or in the park's open spaces. So she ran out of the house, skipping and smiling, and went knocking at all of her friends' houses. That was the last time her mom saw her alive.
What, she didn't come home for dinner? Or she didn't call me?
It was almost 8 p.m., and Sandra should have been home hours ago. Maria was starting to get worried. She called all of Sandra's friends and asked if they'd seen her, but no one had seen her for hours. Maria went out looking for her around the neighborhood, thinking that maybe she got distracted and forgot to come home, but Sandra was nowhere to be found. Maria was now a nervous wreck. She was terrified that something bad had happened to her daughter, so she called the police. When the police arrived, they searched around the area and talked to everyone living in the trailer park, but no one knew where Sandra could be. Luckily, a security camera located outside Sandra's home captured her last moments before she disappeared. The footage shows Sandra skipping playfully across the roadway while heading home, but then she changes direction before getting off the frame. 8 minutes later, a neighbor's car passes, going in the opposite direction. This video proved very helpful in the investigation. The police also learned that Sandra's divorced parents were undergoing support payments issues regarding Sandra's upkeep. Could the dad have taken Sandra to get back at his ex? However, when they talked to Daniel, they quickly ruled him out as a suspect, and that theory turned out to be a dead end. The next day, a massive search was conducted around town, with everyone coming in to help. They brought in a helicopter, dogs unit, police on horses, all-terrain vehicles, and anything that could assist in locating the missing girl. They even brought in divers to search in the nearby river, but they found nothing. It seemed like Sandra had just vanished into thin air. As the hours passed, the situation would become even more desperate. The investigators wanted to reach as many people as possible, just in case someone knew something. They shared Sandra's information with national news media and even offered a reward of $20,000 to anyone who knew anything about her whereabouts. Hundreds of volunteers came from far and wide to help distribute the missing persons flyers. The FBI was also brought in, and roadblocks were placed all around the area. At this time, Maria received a text which seemed a bit misplaced and suspicious. "Tell the police that I had something stolen today around 4 p.m. I don't know if that makes a difference or not." The text came from one of their neighbors, Melissa Huckabee. She was the mom of one of Sandra's friends and also a Sunday school teacher at a local church. For some reason, Melissa thought that her stolen suitcase might have a connection with Sandra's disappearance, which seemed weird at the time. But the police didn't think much of it and continued to follow a different lead. The FBI had made a profile of what they thought the suspect looked like, a white male between 25 and 40 with a criminal history involving under 18s. Surprisingly, several people fit this profile in the neighborhood, but the investigators' attention rested on one man. The police learned that this creepy guy had approached and kissed Sandra on the lips 2 years earlier. That's a red flag if I ever saw one. They brought the man in for questioning, but could not find anything to link him to Sandra's disappearance. Everything about this guy was just wrong. So the police decided to keep an eye on him. Meanwhile, Sandra's family held candlelight vigils to pray for her safety. And it was during one of these events that something rather weird happened. Everyone had come to offer their support to the family, when suddenly a hysterical woman busted in crying and screaming. She went to the police, who had also attended the event, and dragged them outside to show them a note she found on the ground. Cantu locked in stolen suitcase, thrown in water on Batchy Road and White Hill Road. Witness. Quite a chilling message to get when you're looking for a missing girl, and things were just not adding up. To start with, the note had some obvious misspellings, which seemed deliberate. like the writer knew what they were doing. How can someone misspell on with a double N? This seemed totally suspicious, and even more so when the person who had found the note was the same one who had reported a stolen suitcase, Melissa Huckabee. This seemed like too much of a coincidence for one person, and the police thought so too. Up until this point, the police had no reason to suspect Melissa. She was a mom and a Sunday school teacher. Why would she hurt someone her own daughter was friends with? She just didn't fit the profile. But she seemed to be right in the middle of everything. At first, they had thought she was just an attention seeker, but they soon realized there was more to it. Melissa had a history of mental illness. She had been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder, and schizophrenia. She also had a few encounters with the police in the past, although nothing too serious. The police suspected that Melissa might have written the note to herself. They still felt the need to follow it up. They brought in divers to check the irrigation ponds in the area to see if they'd find anything. But as much as they tried, the divers couldn't see anything through the murky waters, and they gave up the search. Several days passed without any new leads on Sandra's whereabouts. Everyone was still searching, but although they could not say it out loud, they knew that they were looking for a body. Then one day, the police received the call they had been dreading. A farm worker from a local irrigation farm found a suitcase where they were draining the ponds. Even before they got there, the police knew what was inside, and they were right. The police then took that luggage from the pond and transported the bag to the county morgue, where this evening, police identified the body of Sandra Cantu. The autopsy report showed that she had been beaten and with a foreign object before being smothered to death. They also found traces of Xanax in her system. This was a big blow to the family, who had still been harboring some hope of finding Sandra alive. Everyone was devastated and heartbroken by this tragic news. Who would do such an unforgivable thing? But the police already had a suspect in mind. They knew that the black suitcase contained Sandra's remains belonged to Melissa, and that she had written the note about where to find it. When they checked through the security footage again, the police noticed that Sandra was heading towards Melissa's house, and then 8 minutes later, Melissa drove away in her SUV. She had earlier told the police that she went to church around 5 p.m. and returned home around 6:30 p.m. When the police searched the church, they found something which proved their suspicion: a metal rolling pin with a bent handle and a red-brown smudge. The rolling pin tested positive for Sandra's DNA. To add to that, a couple came forward and told the police they had seen Melissa at the pond between 5:30 p.m. and 6 p.m. the day that Sandra disappeared. They said that she looked distracted and hurried, and told them that she had gone to relieve herself. The investigators now had enough evidence to arrest Melissa, but when they got to her place, they couldn't find her. They learned that Melissa was in the hospital after she attempted to take by swallowing a sharp blade. They suspected she'd done it to avoid the consequences of her actions. However, after she was discharged, she took herself to the police station where she was arrested and charged with Sandra's death. She claimed that it was an accident and told the police a really unbelievable story of how things happened. She said that Sandra and her daughter were playing hide and seek, and then Sandra got inside the suitcase to hide. Melissa forgot that there was a child inside the bag and went about her normal evening routine. According to her, she later found that Sandra had already died due to a lack of air, and she panicked, dumping Sandra in an irrigation pond. Of course, this was a total lie, and the police already had evidence that told a different story. Investigators came up with their own chilling theory of how things happened. Melissa had tricked Sandra into going with her to the church. When they got there, she'd given the girl a to drink, and when Sandra was knocked out, she her before smothering her. Even worse, there was evidence that Melissa planned this. When the police checked her search history on her computer, they found that she had been reading a story about a man who hid his granddaughter's body in a suitcase. The prosecution sought the death penalty, but Melissa made a plea deal and was sentenced to life in prison without parole instead. During the sentencing hearing, Sandra's father broke into tears as he talked about the loss of his daughter.
You took the life of an innocent little girl, and she's not even old enough to decide to eat ice cream yet.
But why did she do it? She claimed she didn't understand why she did it and apologized to Sandra's parents for taking Sandra from them.
Maria, I wish I could give you an explanation for what happened. I still cannot understand why I did what I did.
The prosecutor speculated that she did it for attention, while some detectives thought that she was jealous of Sandra's vibrant personality, but we may never know for sure. A memorial was held for Sandra Cantu, which brought in a big crowd of people from a lot of different places. Sandra left a huge gap in the hearts of everyone who knew her. She was a sweet and innocent girl who did not deserve such a cruel ending. That brings us to the end of today's video. What do you think of this case? Why do you think Melissa did such a terrible thing? Should she have gotten the death penalty? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. Thanks for watching the videos, you guys. If you liked it, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, bye!